Chaud ananas. Chaud, chaud, chaud ananas.
I appreciate your liberality. I'm not surprised now because I've gotten to know you a little better, and you are a liberal of the 19th century type, the way I feel I am, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We are far more tolerant actually than our enemies. You know?
Yeah, classical liberalism.
And
yeah.
That each man and each woman have a right to say their piece and state their mind and all this kind of stuff. And our enemies, who always call us bigots and closed minds and hate mongers and all this stuff, they could actually take a slice of us, you know?
Certainly. Even when I was not yet a revisionist, even when I still bought the entire Orthodox line, I was always infuriated by attempts to censor or to freeze somebody out of public discourse in some way or another. I felt everybody had a right to say what they wanted to say and to be respected for that.
And did your parents do that, teach you that?
My mother specifically.
Yeah.
I was brought up much along the same lines of thought as I now speak to other people, of freedom being an end in and of itself, freedom being a benefit to society, and that people who try and obstruct someone else's freedom need to be fought, even if the person whose freedom is being obstructed is not connected with you in any way. Even if it's somebody else, you get just as much benefit out of fighting for someone else's freedom as for your own. So I try to live that in my daily life.
Yeah.
My biological father was a German Jew, and my father presently is an English Jew. Although from Russia, I think his parents migrated to London from Russia.
Right. That must be where the eye color is coming from, right? From your biological father, then, right?
Yeah, definitely. I know that his family came from both Germany and Holland.
Yeah.
And they came to the United States before that wave of Russian Jewish immigrants. They were the financially better off German and other European Jews that came over before the wave of immigrants and established themselves in the South.
You mean like late last century? Or?
Yeah, right around the middle of last century.
Yeah.
Jews had been part of the United States, but had never in the beginning really separated themselves. They had tried to blend in to basic American culture, and especially the European Jews, who were not physically different, as opposed to the Russian Jews that came over with their customs and their traditions, and a lot of times with the Jewish beards and the Pesach and everything else.
Yeah, it's very interesting. That maybe would explain. People ask me, what would motivate this young Jewish man to actually step so much out of line with Jewish political orthodoxy or social orthodoxy, and so you then really go back to what you could call, what in political terms, old Republican money. You go back to the older pre-communist revolutionary types who came out of Russia and so on.
I will say as well that there was always somewhat of an independent streak among certain Jews, but I would say that Zionism had a negative effect on that. If you study Judaism before the dawn of the age of Zionism in Israel, there was more dissent among Jews, and there was, and if you go back to before the 40s, there was a great debate among the Jewish community as pro and anti-Zionists really going at it. Many Jews who did not favor the taking of Palestine and the creation of Israel, and that debate was more or less stifled with the victory of the Zionists and somewhat of an all-encompassing takeover of all sides of Judaism by the Zionists.
Actually, I studied for my trial some of the microfilms for the New York Times, and I was amazed how Menahem Begin, the nasty press that he had up until the 50s in the United States. So that debate really raged well into the 50s.
And of course this kind of brings the Holocaust into it, because a lot of Jews, much like my mother, more liberal Jews in America, who did not radically favor Israel, they didn't like the concept of taking the land from the Arabs, or in general, they didn't favor the concept of Jews being told to move to a desert where there was a war going on, as opposed to the relative comfort that they were in.
Naturally.
But it was the Holocaust, and it was the bludgeoning with the Holocaust, and saying we have to have this or else the Holocaust will happen again. We have to get out of Europe because Europe only wants to kill us. And it was the Holocaust that made most of the anti-Zionist Jews rethink their position and kind of give way towards the Zionists.
You know, this is one of the big things that you have taught me in those times that I've been together with you. The immense role that this Holocaust story plays for Jewish self-definition. It wasn't clear to me before.
Yeah.
But you say it's even more important now than Torah or even Talmud teaching. That's really something.
Myself, I can take as a prime example. Because I was a secular Jew and therefore not religious, I was not bar mitzvahed. The only time I really went to temple was when my friends were bar mitzvahed. But because of the secularization, and yet at the same time having the identity of being a Jew, something like the Holocaust became far more important, because that was a defining factor of my Judaism. The history of persecution, hatred of Nazis, hatred of Germans, hatred of anti-Semites, whoever they are defined as then and now. That is what makes you a Jew. I've often said that because so many Jews nowadays are not physically that different from other white people, as opposed to, let's say, Asians or blacks, who by their physical features are defined as separate, but many Jews, because of a lot of interbreeding in Europe with Europeans, are not that physically different. Jews need Jew haters to define them, so they create anti-Semites. They love having lists of anti-Semites, because it is these anti-Semites that allow them to have the definition of being separate. And a Jew without a Jew hater is nothing. Jews need their anti-Semitism, which is why Jews invest so much in fighting anti-Semitism and calling attention to anti-Semitism, and literally anything, any criticism of Israel or Israeli policies or criticism of what Jews might be doing will be labeled as anti-Semitism or Jew hatred, because Jews flourish from pointing to what they call Jew haters and anti-Semitism. It's more than just a fundraising tool for them. It's part of their identity to have enemies. Their enemies list defines them.
Is that a recent phenomenon?
I would say certainly the latter part of this century. As Zionism has grown, because what you see now coming out of the Zionist era, once Israel was established, you see somewhat of a special circumstance in the world for Jews, because now Jews can be a race, or they can be a religion, or they can be a nationality. If a Jew wants to, he can express his Judaism by a devotion to Israel, like secular nationalism, or he can show his Judaism by claiming to be racially a Jew. His parents were Jewish and he is. He can be an atheist but still be a Jew, or he can claim his Judaism by believing in the Old Testament or the Torah or studying the Talmud. So it's all at their disposal, these three things, and there are not too many other groups of people on earth that can claim those three things like that.
Now, can Jews easily move between those three, like select from it, like a menu?
Exactly.
One day this, the next day that, whenever it suits them? Or?
Exactly, and it enables the Jewish advocacy groups to select various pockets of Jews for support at any one time. When support is needed, they can target the nationalist, the Zionist community, or they can target the religious Jewish community, or they can simply target all Jews, saying, well, your parents were a Jew, you're the one that's going to be killed when the Nazis come back. It's by virtue of your race. And they can target any of those three groups, or all three at the same time. It makes it very easy, because the heart of political consulting, the heart of working in a political group is identifying a market of people and playing to that market. It's the exact same as advertising. When you go to these modern advertising facilities, they are doing demographic work, identifying markets. What do the 18 to 30-year-olds buy? What do the 50 to 60-year-old women buy?
Now, what you were saying then is that the difficulty that I faced of not being able to reach out, even though I've made for years these gestures of extending the hand of cooperation, if not friendship or whatever, at least a kind of a side-by-side, leaving both communities live side-by-side with our own concepts of history. I've gotten nowhere. And so is that possibly because they need me as a tool for self-definition. It would be a tragedy, you know.
That is a very good take on the situation. I think they need Ernst Sundel to kick around because putting your face like on the cover of the B'nai B'rith magazine, and you certainly get a lot of press, albeit negative press, but certainly press up here in Canada.